Welcome to another exciting, amazing, and just plain old fun episode of the Neville Goddard podcast. My name is Mr. 2020, and today we're going to give you a behind-the-scenes peek at an instant win. Because right now I'm looking at the red dot on the Blue Yeti microphone. That's what I use for the podcast. It plugs into my cool little iPad Pro. And at this time of the year, coming up on the shortest day of the year, the podcast is done in the dark. And we're going to dive in and have a lot of fun here with the streetcar system. Ready? Let's go. So maybe you recall the streetcar story. It's one of my absolute favorites. In the streetcar story, a woman wants to be someplace far, far away. And she doesn't want to be in San Francisco. And she's on a streetcar in San Francisco, and she's imagining being on a boat, I believe in Samoa. And what she ends up doing is she ends up taking what's going on around her on Christmas Eve and moving around the world. First imaginatively, first in imagination, then in physicality. So while she's on the streetcar, she's crying. You ever have one of them days you just feel like crying? She's crying. And she's holding on to the railing of the streetcar. And what she does is she moves in consciousness. She experiences the salt of her tears as the mist of the ocean. What they feel like, what they taste like. She experiences the railing of the streetcar as if it were the railing of a ship. She uses what she's got, what she could go to war against, what she could feel bad about. She uses what she has in the physical world to anchor in, to expand, to nail her wish fulfilled. And you probably know what happened. Somebody left her some money. I think it was in 60 days she was gone. She was around the world. She was on her trip. She didn't settle, she chose to soar. She didn't make any excuses, she didn't wait. She didn't beat herself up for having a bad emotion. She didn't stop and align her vibration. She didn't burn some incense, she didn't light a candle, she didn't put on 4 hours of brainwave recordings. She didn't do chanting every day in every way. I am in Samoa. You know what she did? She moved. So here's my instant win. Here's the behind-the-scenes bit. Right now, here is my instant win. Here's my behind the scenes. Right now, this podcast. Because when I came out here, it was raining. And I'm in the little cottage out back in the disposable hot tub, and it was raining. And on the lovely little tin roof we have, rain is loud. And I can't make a podcast when it's loud. Just doesn't happen. And so I'm looking at the red dot on the Blue Yeti microphone. Because I've already got the microphone all plugged in. Remember, I do my Joseph Goddard daily. I do it exactly like I teach it. Before I get out of bed this morning, I imagine up 5 to 10, 7 to 12, 6 to 13. I imagine up a handful of specific events of my day having gone my way. Like today's podcast, like today's Dream-Driven Day call, like lunch, like my time at the pool. So on and so forth. So I take these specific events and I nail them. So I've already nailed a podcast, but it ain't happening. But I don't slide into doubt. I don't slide into despair. I don't light a candle. I don't even unplug the microphone. I just stare at the red dot. Because when I'm giving the podcast, when I finish the podcast, I see the red dot. The difference is I feel accomplished and satisfied. So I physically look at that red dot. And I move into that feeling of accomplished and satisfied. I experience my last words of the podcast. See ya. I experience those in imagination while physically looking at that red dot. I use the streetcar system. You'll notice in one day so far, I've done Joseph Goddard to the max. I've done the streetcar system. I live this stuff. That's why it works. If you don't live it, it ain't going to work for you. Now, here's the thing. I bet you imagine something that has you listening to this podcast. Cool. I want you to imagine soaring even higher. Cool. If you got some gold today, we've got a cool little place you can go. It's called NevilleGoddardStore.com. That's NevilleGoddardStore.com. When you go to NevilleGoddardStore.com, you're going to see, like cool shit, right? Stuff that we made and we made up. Stuff that comes from 20 plus years of exploring. Stuff that comes from years and years of success and experience. If you want to support the project, if you want to invest in you, go to NevilleGoddardStore.com. And right now, I invite you, ready, to go into the silence. Never settle, always soar. Keep stretching, have fun. Thanks for listening. See ya.